Hi, everyone. So today, as you can see, I have taken over the dais from Piyush, but I'm here on Management Master's behalf. I am Kashish Minocha, and I'm currently working with KPMG as a consultant in its risk consulting practice. Today, I'm here on behalf of Management Masters, which is a boutique admissions consulting firm, which helps candidates like me, and I'm sure many more out there, achieve and realize their dreams of pursuing an MBA or an MIM from some of the top institutions across the globe. And today I'm really excited because we have amidst us Arushi Pathak, who is currently an MBA student at the Cornell Johnson College, as you can very well see from her background. No mean feat achieved there, and I'm sure it's been a journey, and really excited to just find out more about it and help our viewers understand more about it, and hopefully leave all of us a little inspired to keep working and towards our goals and hopefully achieve them. Great. So I think the favorite question, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you studied, where you come from, a little bit about where you worked, and we know that you're a Johnson, but what was the same before that?
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you so much, Kashish, for your kind words and for having me here. You're right. It's been quite the journey, and a part of me is still not believing 6 months into MBA that I am like an MBA grad student forever. But yeah, it's that being said, it's sort of been very eventful and at the same point of time almost unbelievable. To give you a little bit of background on me, so I hail from a smaller town in India. It's called Meerut, and I moved to Delhi to pursue my undergrad in economics from the University of Delhi. 3 years there. Immediately afterwards, I moved to KPMG India in their risk consulting practice, and my work was mostly around fraud investigations and anti-money laundering service lines. Super exciting work, as you can imagine, but at the same point of time, it was sort of very challenging because not only are we working with a lot of data sets, but at the same point of time, you're required to be on your feet with respect to what the client needs, managing teams, managing people sitting across global locations. So it was really exciting. But at the same point of time, a part of me was always sort of really inclined towards, going behind the scenes of recommending solutions to clients and actually executing those solutions. And with that in mind, I wanted to be in sort of more of an execution role, preferably in the world of marketing, because that's something that really resonated with my personality. I knew that I can perhaps bring together my very quant heavy background from my time at KPMG and my time before KPMG as an econ grad, bring it together with an inherent creative problem solving trait that I have, and which is why marketing was exciting. I came to Johnson for that, just to be able to make that sort of pivot and perhaps be more focused in region. Luckily, that's been really exciting for me, and has worked out fairly recently because that's where I'm headed to for my summer internship in June. And my work would probably be more focused on the hardcore brand management side of things, figuring out right from consumer research to the execution of the overall brand strategy for my individual brand, which is something that sounds super fun. And yeah, that's been more or less what it has been for the last year. I took a lot of time to make sure that my application makes a lot of sense to Johnson, because it was one of my top priorities. And I also, at the same point of time, wanted to make sure that this sort of shift from consulting to marketing made sense to me personally, along with to my overall career expectation for my life. So yeah, super excited to be here and happy to answer any questions that you may have for me.
That's great. That's actually really interesting. It's. I think you touch all of the points that people normally think about: non-engineering, not from like a tier 1 college in India. And personally, I mean, the certain facts that I would know about, not like a stellar, very high GMAT score, and not like not like a McKinsey Bain. So I think you really hit all of those right chords, and you want to switch your career, and yet you've made it to one of the top colleges in the globe. So I think, yes, getting to learn more about it and about your journey is going to be super interesting. Starting with your applications, if you could just talk us through, how did you approach the entire process? What were your priorities? What schools, basically what factors did you take into account while deciding, okay, these are the schools that I want to apply to? What was important to you?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Kashish. So, well, firstly, as I was just talking about, I wanted to move into the North American region for, like a longer period of time, not just focus on getting an internship there and then coming back to India. Like this was sort of a priority for me that this has to be my launch pad into a different geography and into a different market altogether. So that definitely was the first priority. Which is why most of my focus had been on US schools. That being in place, and to all your listeners, I would say definitely make sure of the kind of place that you see yourself in the next 5 years and in the next 10 years. It's incredibly important. We sort of downplay it when we're like when we're in a stable job right now, and we think that we're going to change things, but like we never really make a move. It's sort of very important to make sure that the place that you're thinking about applying to is the place that you want to be in for at least a fair amount of time. The second part that I would say to this is be very honest with yourself about your profile. Like as an Indian, I knew that I'm from an overrepresented pool. Unfortunately, as much as you would say that this, econ is like a non-traditional background, there's a lot of economics graduates as well. I think the second thing that comes after engineering would be either like a business degree or an economics degree. So definitely, yes, engineering sort of takes away the bag. Most of my friends there are engineers. So like, funnily enough, I think like out of all of the Indians that I know there, majority of them have an engineering background. But the second that comes after that is an econ or a business degree. So I would say still sort of, borderline gets on a little representation, but yeah, like not as much as engineering for sure. The third thing that I would say is yes, GMAT score is important. Do not believe somebody who says that it's not. Like, unfortunately, again, there's a lot of ways that people sort of try and paint this picture that things can still work out. I agree, things can still work out, but you will have to work very, very hard for in order to make yourself stand somewhere in that pool of like 750 and 770s. I knew I had to do it. So, like my GMAT score was above a 700, but at the same point of time, it was just above a 700. So like I knew that if I need to get into one of those top, T15 in the US, it has to really reflect in my application and my passion towards what I want to do. So these things, priority being North America and understanding my profile was something which was very important for me from the very beginning. And I was very honest, I did not apply to Harvard. I knew it will not work out. Like there's literally no point of doing it. I mean, I'm not trying to discourage anybody about this. It's just that I was honest with myself. So like the idea behind saying this is that somebody may have like a low GMAT score, but is very confident in their overall profile. Maybe they're a national level basketball player or a national level soccer player. Maybe it will work out. So, the idea is to make sure and be honest with you about where you stand in the broader scheme of things, and then approach it with like smartly, because ultimately a lot of money is going into even applying to these places, and not just money, like a lot of time and effort. And it's an excruciating process. It takes so much energy out of you to be able to draft all those applications, making sure that you have all those deadlines set, you have your recommendations set, all with managing hopefully a full-time job. So it's just really important. Give yourself a lot of time, focus on what's a priority for you. Maybe location is not a priority for you. Maybe you're pretty flexible. Then in which case, what's the next thing? The second best thing would be the culture of the place. Do you want to be in a very multicultural environment, or are you okay with, like a sort of more interior school away from any of these big cities? So this was the second thing that also was really important to me. I wanted to know the first, I wanted to be close to New York, because that's where I thought, that I would be happy working in the long run. So focusing on those things, and focusing on how you fit in the broader scheme of things is super important, and I think that should be a good starting step.
Great. I think I resonate with that on so many levels. And, after the entire experience and just going through the entire process, I think my biggest learning that I in fact share with anyone is that do not underestimate the process of applying to a B school. It could be any B school, but do not underestimate the process, and do at the same time, do not overestimate yourself or your capabilities. I think it's so important to strike that perfect balance between realities and aspirations. So, I mean, can totally resonate with you on that. On that accord, so I would want to know, which school did you finally choose? And, you had multiple schools. I'm sure you would have applied to more than one schools. What schools did you apply to, if you don't mind sharing? Which school, I mean, we know you chose Cornell, but why did you eventually go with Cornell? And I know that's been a journey as well. So if you could just share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was just mentioning that Johnson was definitely one of my top choices. So I sort of focused, and that does not come from the fact, I mean, as a lot of people may think, well, it's because of the name and the brand, it's because the fact that it's an Ivy League, or, I mean, ultimately, a lot of these things really matter to people. I agree they matter, yes. But that was sort of not the reason why I wanted to be here, and I'll come back to this. But before that, in terms of the schools that I applied to, so I remember applying to Columbia, Rochester, Duke, then Cornell.
Great. Thank you for that. And on that accord, I would want to know a little bit more about, keeping your goals and personal aspirations in mind. What are the different schools that you applied to? We know that you wanted to go, you were focusing on the North American region, but there, which schools did you apply to? How did you really prioritize? And, we know you went to Cornell. So why was it Cornell that you eventually chose?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was just talking about, how Johnson was sort of one of my top choices. So I knew that, okay, if this works out, this is going to be it. And it's not because it's an Ivy League, or the fact that, it has a decent ranking and all of that. Those things are important, yes. But those were not sort of my reasons, and I'll come back to this in a bit. But before that, in terms of what are the other places I applied to, I remember focusing on the East Coast, so Rochester, Duke, well, Duke's slightly in the interiors, but then I had applied to Columbia. The only place that I had applied to on the West Coast was UCLA, and the reason behind that was that they have a very strong marketing program, and media was probably the second thing that I was focusing on along with CPG. But the reason sort of Johnson was something because of which I decided to stick till the very end was one, because I was just really, so it was very close to New York City, one. Two, I was absolutely I had so much fun interacting with the people here. So all of my second years now, I mean, those people remember me as the girl who would just keep speaking to them every single month about, okay, hey, I'm still on the wait list. What do I do? I really want to come here. What do I do? Also, there's a whole history associated with the school, associated with Cornell. I mean, I cannot even begin to tell you the amount of cool things that they do here on campus. The fact that, we have reopened campus and are managing around COVID times so well. I get a COVID test every week free of cost. That's on the school. So, I mean, it's just, just the brilliant things that the school does, the kind of people that are there, and just an overall, sort of sense of familiarity that I had gauged with these people and with the campus was why I was so hell bent, for the lack of a better phrase, to come to Johnson. And like it eventually, it was probably like one of the things that worked out for me in the end, like, and in times when I was expecting them the least. But yeah, I mean, it was sort of very exciting, and I had to reject a couple of other offers for this to happen. But then when your first choice works out, it just works out. So it's like that.
That's awesome. I think you definitely had some great options. I think it's always important to have those sort of, I mean, obviously everyone wants to go to the best out there for them, but I think it's also equally important to have those options, because you never know what works out and what doesn't work out in your favor. I mean, there is just like no formula to getting accepted. Everyone can just try their best.
None.
And I'm glad that you
You
touched
will
on
not
the
know.
Yes, exactly. And I'm really glad that you touched that you were on the wait list. And from the wait list, you are now there to Cornell. I think that's huge because that is another challenge and another journey in and of itself. So, if you could just tell a
Yeah.
little about you, like I'm sure you would have gotten to know about your decision of being on the wait list around December, maybe January, or a little later than that. And and the decision to come out of that wait list would have happened slightly after that. So what did you do in that time? What effort or what impact did you create? And how did you communicate with the committee, with the school to actually, make them believe that that is where you want to be and now that you're there? So what was that entire thing? What was that entire journey like, being on the wait list and then actually being at the school?
Yeah, I would say not the best, not the best time of my life for sure. Because I mean, I just want to be honest here and say that it's definitely better than a ding, of course, like you're not getting rejected, yes. But at the same point of time, when you're drafting that application and you're sending it across, you've already put the best that there can be. Like, you know that okay, these are the things that I have highlighted. This is the resume that I have thrown finally after like putting in so many hours into it. And once you sort of in that, once you get that wait list, you're just in a limbo. Like you're like, okay, what now? Like I cannot change myself. I mean, yeah, sure, you can change your GMAT score. Sure, you can like think about maybe working on certain quantitative aspects of your application in case that's lacking. But in my case, the concern was neither of them. It was the fact that I'm young. And I can't change my age, I can't change my forecast. So that was, I mean, I understood where that was coming from, and I was very respectful towards the school. And in fact, they were very respectful towards me as well, because Johnson had a very streamlined process. They wanted, and most schools want you to give a base when you're on the wait list. So, if there's any, like if there's a promotion, or if you're taking up a new project, or if you have a new GMAT score, or if there's any, quantitative schoolwork that you've taken or something like that, anything that will add substance to your application, schools usually really encourage you to give them those updates. That's sort of what I did. So just to give you a brief timeline, I got waitlist from Johnson and waitlist from Anderson, which is UCLA, at the same time. And meanwhile, Rochester had already worked out for me, and I had just interviewed with Oxford. So, like there was so much happening simultaneously, and it was probably like not the best place to for me to be in, because I was trying to just make sure that, okay, do I want to, maybe wait this out and see how things happen later in the year? Or do I want to just like take what I have right now and move on with it and forget about everything else? So that was one choice. The second thing associated to this was that, okay, given the fact that, I let go of the place that I've been, I was Rochester, I was letting go of a considerable amount of scholarship. So, that was also a concern that will this, I mean, if and when I get out of the wait list, will this sort of replicate in that new offer? Will it even happen? But, again, and I would completely understand for somebody for whom like scholarship is a very, very big factor in terms of deciding their school, for them to like choose the safety of that over like, reaching for better schools or like a different geography or reaching for like higher rank places. It completely makes sense. Again, as I said, it comes down to personal priorities. But for me at that point of time, I just wanted to give it a shot. I knew that, okay, worst comes to worst, it will not happen this year, and I will like figure it out, work on myself, and try again next year at Liberty. Which is why I let go of the offer there. I focused on the two schools that I was getting a wait list from, and it was a very very sort of exhausting process, because then you're in that entire process again. Essentially, for every single time that you were presenting sort of an update, or to Johnson, I had to give an action plan. What am I going to do to make sure that my candidacy is strong enough for their school? So that is one side of things. I was focusing on doing quant work. I took up MBA math and all of that to make sure that I can prove that, okay, my quant profile is just as strong as I'm claiming it to be. At the same point of time, any single thing that I was doing at job, like it had to make an impact and become an update. So I mean, at the same point of time, think about like how to present anything that you're doing as a considerable addition to your candidacy. Like, it cannot be that, oh, you know what, I'm an analyst on a new project. Like, no, what is it that, what are you contributing? How is it adding to your skill set? Why is it more exciting? So, and mind you, this was all happening in the middle of a lockdown, so there's only so much that was going on. And but that being said, like, it also gave me the chance to focus a lot more on taking up additional coursework. And even on Coursera, I went on and like tried to take up more coursework associated with marketing, digital marketing, so that I'm showing to them that I'm very serious about what I want to do, and I'm very excited at the same point of time to be able to do it full time. Secondly, with respect to your question around how did I reiterate my interest to the school, well, it's sort of a balance. Do not email them every week. Do not email them every month as well, I would say. But like, consistently try and stay in touch with a couple of people who were sort of your primary points of contact. So I had like a few people that I had been speaking to, including, the associate dean there. And I had met him in person in December, when right before the lockdown, when he was visiting India. So I tried to like make those connections, and kept following up with them, making sure that, I'm reiterating at the end of every email. I would be like, um, so many things are happening, and it's a very exciting time for me. But at the same point of time, should the opportunity of being a part of the Johnson community turns up, like, I would not let it go, and I will grab it with both hands, and like I'll be right there. So, I mean, it's all about building those relationships. I feel that as for us as Indians, like, we have to go a little bit out of our comfort zone to make sure that we are striking those connects in an efficient and like a very effective way. But at the same point of time, I feel like it takes you really far. So for anybody listening to this, either on the wait list or thinking about the process, please network with people there. They will remember you. Like, school, everybody in school, the moment I joined, they remembered me. There were people emailing me that, we are very happy that we could take you off the wait list and get you into the school eventually, because we are very excited to have you here. So I would say that definitely strike those relationships. It depends, it's cool. So just how much does your school appreciate all of this? And I think it'll only help. It cannot make things worse for you. Yeah.
That is just, I am just overwhelmed by listening to it. So I'm sure that you had to go through the entire process. I mean, literally hats off, just applying is so exhausting. I can only imagine what being on the wait list and working again, reiterating again, thinking about yourself again would feel like. So, I mean, literally, kudos to you on that. I know it's only been a few months that you've been at Cornell. This is only like, still, I think, the beginning of your journey, considering programs in the US are for 2 years. But how has it been so far? How is Cornell? And you're very close to New York. So how is that treating you?
Well, I would not be anywhere else. I'd rather not be anywhere else. I literally, this has to very easily be one of the best decisions that I've ever made. And I'm not saying this because I always wanted to do this, but, it's sort of been very very liberating, really sort of, you're always doing something or the other, getting to meet new people and getting just like different perspectives. Everybody has had a different life. Everybody has had, amazing stories to tell and all of that. And it's just, it's, I mean, sometimes it gets too good that it's too overwhelming. So, like, I mean, and I'm not saying that in like a bad way, just the amount of information that's out there, just the amount that you can learn from different people. Getting, and so Johnson and Cornell in general are like really big on leadership, they're really big on teams, and sort of they really put you together and push you out of your comfort zone to be able to strike those relationships and to be able to work in very, very different and very difficult circumstances as well. So even that, like every day in class is a learning, sort of like a learning process. And even if you're not learning the subject matter, there's just so much that's happening that you like by the end of the day you're like, okay, I learned at least 5 new things today, which is a great place to be in, to be honest. And with respect to like how the place is, so Ithaca, the place where the university is, well, it thrives only on the university. It's a college town, so it's a very small place. It snows a lot. It's beautiful, and campus is definitely to die for. I mean, so back in summer, I would spend all of my time there. In I think the first 3 weeks, I would go to after quarantine, the before the snow started setting in, I would go there every single day, just hang out during the daytime until the sun would go down, and it's beautiful. So definitely, I mean, like it just seems out of like a fairy tale and all of that. So yeah, I mean that's sort of a highlight for me. But now that it's been snowing, difficult to go out, but that has a charm of its own. Though it sort of like goes away very quickly after like 3 days of consistent snow. You're just like, okay, fine, like can we see the sun now? So that's there. But I've been visiting New York as well. My internship happens to be in New York in the summer, so I'm super excited about that too. And yeah, like even though there's been sort of like a lot of the fun has been dampened because of COVID. I think the school in itself has done a phenomenal job making sure that things are sort of in place and we can have as close of an experience to normalcy as we can. And I do go for classes as well sometimes. So yeah, like it's been I mean, it's just absolutely exciting. You have something to look forward to every single day, and I've kept myself busy with clubs. I've kept myself busy with hosting events and all of that, and it's just it's sort of a very different space to be in, especially after you've been working for a few years. Like to be able to sort of immediately switch and come back to the sheer pace of the things are. Like I don't know where my first semester went. I'm 1 week into my second semester and I just feel like, okay, am I seriously 1 week into this? So that's how MBA is. But that being said, it's super fun. And yeah, like there's honestly no other place I'd rather be for sure.
That is so good. And just as a disclaimer for everyone who's watching this, when Arushi talked about being young to get into Cornell, she is actually young. She had, I think, a little more than 2 years of experience, around 2.5 years of experience when she applied. And she had, nearly 3 years of experience when she got into Cornell. And if you are even slightly aware of how the MBA dynamics work, having 3 years of experience, being younger than 25 is young for an MBA in, Cornell or in any of the elite institutions out there. So, I mean, yes, she's young. Yes, virtual classes are there, but I don't think the COVID pandemic has in any way dampened your MBA experience or impacted the learnings that you're having in your MBA, primarily. That is the biggest thing that we, look out for, that and recruitment. You already have an internship. So I definitely don't feel that the COVID pandemic has really dampened your experience in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that they have worked really hard. Like schools, and I'm not just saying Johnson, like I think schools have really gone. And let me just like put it like this, that, it was a brand new, unexpected exigency for them as well. Like they're not used to having professors record in a studio and present live classes. We struggled with Zoom as well, just like just like anybody in office or anywhere. And like these professors are seasoned people. They
Yeah.
have not, and they're not so technologically savvy all the time. So, it has had its challenges for sure, but I would say that most schools have done phenomenally well. They've gone out of their way to make sure that this entire process is very easy for their students, including for internationals, more so for internationals, because there was a lot of uncertainty regarding when we would be able to get on campus. And once we did, for me, it happened very quickly, like it happened
Yeah.
within 20 days. So, once we got there, and to be able to make sure that that transition is smooth, that we are sort of on completely on the go, not just with respect to classes. In fact, classes is like 40% of what happens. It's 60% is recruiting, 60% is like building up your skill set, making sure that you're networking with the right sets of people. So everybody understands sort of the disclaimer of the pandemic, the restrictions and the limitations, but at the same point of time, people are just like really going out of their way to make sure that you have just as close of an experience as possible. And not just in terms of classes and formalized things, but also, we had a virtual Diwali this year as the South Asian Business Club. And it was really exciting. I mean, everybody, so we have this tradition of doing dances. Everybody from faculty to students to like, deans, everybody's doing it. And it was really, I think it was probably the highlight of my time here at Johnson in the first semester, because I was choreographing two groups and people were just so excited. Like most of them didn't understand the music that was playing, but
Yeah.
just to be, like build those relationships over Bollywood dancing and all of that was super exciting. And we recorded all of this, and instead of doing it live, which is what it happens usually for Diwali, we recorded and like put together a video, and then that was aired on Diwali night. So I mean, everybody's just coming up with innovative ways. Everybody's just trying to make sure that we're making the most of the way things are, and I think that's the spirit, for anything, just to like keep moving forward.
That's just so nice to hear, like I'm really excited to probably experience all of that myself, hopefully, not virtually, but I mean, even then, it's just really exciting to hear that. And definitely by the spirit of it, I don't feel at all talking to you that it is any way, hampered your experience of pursuing an MBA. So, I mean, great. I mean, all the best for you that, and I hope that we can resume our normal life very soon.
Yeah,
Despite however fun this is, I really hope we can just, go back to
I
the
agree.
normal.
I agree 100%. Yes.
Great. So, you also mentioned about, how starting an MBA or just being there in front of like, or in between like so many people who come from different backgrounds, they have different stories. And, it is a place of achievers, right? Everybody's achieved a lot and everybody's looking to achieve even more in their lives. It can be intimidating, it can be overwhelming. So, how do you really navigate through that space? How do you sort of blend in and try to make your way through it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that honestly is a challenge. Everybody over there has done phenomenally well in their respective fields, which is why they're there in the
Yeah.
first place. And I mean, I would say that it would be completely normal for you to feel like, for that imposter syndrome to kick in,
Yes.
that maybe like I don't deserve to be here, or maybe that, like I'm not smart enough and people around me are just like such brilliant people. But I think the one thing that worked very well for me on an individual level was this consistent reassurance personally that there's a reason you're here as well, and sort of understand what that reason is and just be true to it. Like, I mean, I would not go out of my way and say that, oh, you know what, like I know how to code, because guess what, I don't. And like eventually it'll catch up to me. So the way it was structured for us in the very beginning was we sort of had this goal setting, just like every other organization does. But for us, it wasn't something like, oh, what, achieve a chargeability of so and so percent. For us, it was just like, okay, identify what's an individual limitation for you. So, for example, for me, it has always been courageous conversations. I would not take up confrontation. I would just like, keep soaking it in and like, okay, fine, let's just move on. Let's not go there. I realized that this is a limitation and I need to fix it. So, like, right within the first week, I sort of put together this entire goal sheet for myself. And this was my one and only goal there, that I want to be, by the end of the semester, able to at least strike a conversation and put my point forward. And these things are super important because let's face it, nobody is perfect and everybody has something or the other they're working on. Also, at the same point of time, it's not just you who's overwhelmed. I mean, I've been speaking to so many people who would say that we are often afraid of what would offend an international student. So, like for example, if somebody like would crack a joke in front of me, and then they would immediately be like, "Okay, I'm so sorry if that came across as offensive." And the thing is that I would, I would also make sure that I'm not with my existence and my presence making somebody else feel uncomfortable and say something which which may not sit very well with them. So these things sort of happen, and they happen more frequently, and people are usually very, very careful about the way they are conducting themselves. But then that's how, like, I feel MBA is slightly different from other very academic degrees, because ultimately we're all in sort of this limbo of getting an internship and getting a job together. Ultimately, the ultimate goal is that everybody should be able to achieve what they set out to before they came for this MBA. So since we're in all of us are in that anxiety together, right? Like the sense of camaraderie that comes out of anxiety is unbelievable. So you wouldn't believe, like, everybody's sitting together at 3 a.m. working on that capstone project, and everybody is losing their minds. People are all putting Instagram stories with like a lot of beer in their hand, trying to survive somehow, beer, coffee, whatever may work for you. So like those things sort of really create those relationships. And I wouldn't say that, I mean, they would be very different from the relationships that you've had in the past in school, in undergrad, maybe in grad school in India, maybe in office. They would be very different. But you can sort of expect that they would understand where you are more than anybody else. So a lot of times, like when I'm speaking to my friends in India and I'm crying about, oh my God, school is just killing me, they would be like, what do you have to do? You just have classes. And I'm like, no, that's not true. But again, I mean, it's difficult for somebody else to, understand and try and get that perspective. So
Yeah.
I would say it sort of is difficult, yes, but you get into the groove of things very quickly. After a point of time, you will be able to find your people with whom you want to hang out more, people, and then there's always going to be a sense of camaraderie among South Asians. Like, you come from a similar culture, you have similar jokes, you have a similar sense of humor. At the end of it, like, that comfort will always be there. And I was of the opinion that, what, I'm never going to make like a lot of friends who are from my culture when I move.
Yeah.
That changes very quickly. That changes very quickly. So once you're away from the country and you're missing Gulab Jamun, the only person that you can talk to is a fellow Indian or a fellow
Yeah.
South Asian, and
And in
not like
Hindi, I
to
think just
somebody
that
else.
fact that
Yeah.
some emotions you can only communicate in your language, in your specific language, in your specific thing. So, I mean, thank you for that heads up. I will
Absolutely.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, yeah. No, the thing is that you will have friends from all across the world, for sure. But in the middle of the night when you're getting homesick and you want to eat, like, I don't know, chaat,
Rajma
like
chawal.
yeah, like you will talk to somebody who gets that. So, like, ultimately, I mean, there's going to be, you'll have close friends from all different cultures, which is sort of the beauty of an MBA. But that being said, like, you may fool yourself and think that, no, I'm not going to make friends with any Indians. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's the good part though about being Indian or just being from the South Asian region. You will find them everywhere in plenty. Whatever school I mean, while it is a disadvantage when you're applying because the competition is huge and intense, I think once you're there at the school, it's a huge advantage because you know that these people are going to flock in numbers. So, you do have your probably safety net, if I can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's sort of both ways, like sometimes it's comforting and sometimes it's incredibly annoying as well. That you're just like, how has this followed me halfway across the world? But it's okay. I mean, like, some days are good, some days are bad. It's all about ups and downs. I would say for everybody, who's walking, like going in for an MBA, be really patient with yourself, because I mean, it's not anything, you're very out of your comfort zone, and it can get very overwhelming very quickly if you don't take it easy. So at the end of the day, if you're having a bad day, you know what, like, get that glass of wine, or like get that beer, sit with yourself, watch some trashy TV show and go to sleep. It'll all work out. Like the next day you will be like, okay, now I can move on.
And for those of you who don't drink, do not think that you need to start drinking in order to be able to endure an MBA. You can just say whatever your
That is
poison
super
is.
important.
It could be
Yeah.
chocolate.
Like, I mean, yeah, it can be anything. Like, just get that mug of hot chocolate, man. And like, if you're in a winter, hot chocolate in the middle of the night, nothing better than that. Like, nothing can beat that. So if that works, sure. Pick your poison. Just like make sure that you have those resources with you and
Yeah.
like you being easy on yourself. This entire journey, right from the day you decide to apply until the day you graduate from preschool, it's going to be very sort of very like it's just a roller coaster. Like things keep changing very quickly and they change too much. But just taking it easy on yourself, that's the one thing that I have felt has worked really well for me.
Great. And I think coming probably to the last leg of this interview, and I touched about how you really hit the chords when people think about an MBA and certain myths that people have. You're even now transitioning to a career in marketing. You were very sure that you wanted to do that even when you applied. And it's one thing to just think that I want to do this, and a lot of us just say it in our applications, but you're actually doing it. You're actually transitioning to that career, to the extent that you now even have an internship in a sector and industry of your choice. So I believe an MBA can really make that happen for you. So just if you could talk a little bit about your recruitment experience, and is career switching a reality, and how does it really work in an MBA? Because I think whoever's applying, whoever's thinking about these things will have a few questions about this in their mind.
Yeah, of course. So I would say career switching, 95% of the people are doing it. So that's why you go for an MBA. So don't like don't be worried about, oh, whether this will happen for me or not. It will. I mean, it's just, and you're not the only one who's doing it. So I would say that yes, definitely. I mean, career switching happens. At the same point of time, be very realistic about how dramatic you want that change to be. Like, for example, it's always useful, and even when you're interviewing, even when you're applying, the reason people ask you to write that, adcoms want you to write that application, want you to write that essay, wants to interview you, is simply to make sure that you understand the sort of limitations and the sort of expectations that you're setting for yourself. If you're talking about going from a very liberal arts background to like a very very intense investment banking job after being in that liberal arts background for 15 years, I won't say it's impossible. It's going to be difficult. But that being said, I know of somebody who went from a liberal arts background and is going to be taking up a job full time at Bain. So all I'm saying is things happen. It's just like, you really have to be very confident about why you think that you would be able to make that switch happen. So when I was talking about moving from, consulting to CPG marketing, I talked about like what are my transferable skills, that I have that really differentiates me from everybody else who will be sitting in for that job. And the first thing that I made sure I'm saying out loud is my strength, which is that I have a quant heavy background. Like I understand numbers, I'm comfortable with Excel. I know that, okay, if this is appearing in such a pattern, maybe there's a story behind these numbers and it's just like not there by a matter of fluke chance. So those things are very important. In my personal experience, I would say I did have to work very hard though, just to make sure. And I think this will stand for everybody, anybody, and everybody who's a career switcher. Like you will have to make sure that any skills that you have from your past employment are relevant to where you want to go in the future. Reflect that in your resume. There are certain ways that the resumes are going to be, and school will help you with all of this for sure. Your seniors will help you with all of this. They will make sure that you're putting together a resume which has those keywords, which has those important sort of skills, important sort of interests as well, a lot of times, which may be relevant to a marketing firm, but not so relevant to, say, a tech firm.
Yeah.
So, I decided to dual recruit, and I was also recruiting for tech. And so the applications that I sent to, say, for example, Microsoft or Google or Amazon were very different from the applications that I sent to Colgate, the application that I sent to Kraft. And like, so the resume was also so different. Like eventually for example, when Colgate happened, like that was a different resume. The very next week, I got an interview invite for an internship at Amazon, and that was a very different resume. So, like you just sort of have to make sure to understand what is it that every single role is going to need and like make those tweaks. But then that happens way later. Before like reaching school, make sure that you're very confident about your story. It should make sense in the broader scheme of things. And ultimately, I think what the AdCom is looking for is how much do you bring out, your individual, your personal passion towards what is it that you want to do. Because ultimately, like if you're not fully confident about what you want to do, it will start reflecting. Like it just really. And AdComs, they've been doing this for years. Like they do this for a living. They can see through you. So like, it's not like you will say that, oh, you know what, finance sounds interesting, I would probably do it. They'll be like, no, you would probably not, with that attitude. So, I mean, it's just like career switch should not be a cause of concern for you. How much that fits with you individually is something that, they're looking for, and something that you should definitely bring out in your application.
Yeah, I think that is, again, like very insightful. I think all of the things you say just really reinforce that confidence, or just that, the doubts that even I have sometimes. So, seeing you, do that, and, literally just hearing your experience sort of reinforces that thing. And at the same time, I think being realistic about stuff is very, very important. And I think you brought that out beautifully in your example, in your answer. So now I think we'd be moving to the last segment of, which is a new segment that we've added in all the interviews that we are doing, which is a rapid fire. We thought, it's already fun, to just listen to these stories, chat with different people from different backgrounds with like some really amazing different stories. I think my MBA experience has already started before I even actually started. So, but a new segment that we've added is a rapid fire question. We have 5 questions for you, and I think goes without saying you have to be rapid about it. So let's start with that. It's not coffee with Karan. It's not like coffee with Karan at all. It's not controversial. It's all very, very sweet and personal and nice. So, we'll just focus on that. So, yeah. So I think, okay, beginning with the first question, 3, 2, 1. What was your biggest apprehension before starting your MBA?
That I'm too young.
Okay. What is the one thing that stands out about your school, in your opinion?
Oh, Sage Hall. It's a beautiful building.
Okay. Okay, Sage Hall. All right. One thing that prospective candidates should be absolutely prepared for, before they start their MBA journey.
Oh, it's going to be very exhausting. And like in terms of MBA journey, if I talk about applications, there will be days when you may cry to sleep. Just saying, like it's frustrating, and that reflects once you get into school as well. And once like curriculum starts, then you're definitely going to cry yourself to sleep at least one day. So yeah, just be prepared to cry to sleep.
Great, lots of truth bombs being dropped here. So the next one I'm going to ask you is, which of all the applications you filled out, and considering there were a lot of them, which one was your favorite essay to work on?
Back of the resume essay with Johnson, because I recorded a video for that, and that was a story which was very personal to me. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I actually like still look at it from time to time. I was very proud of it, so had a lot of fun with that.
That's awesome. That's really nice. And when you reflect now, one thing that you think you could have done differently in your applications, or in your the entire process of working on your applications?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I should have been smarter about the way I structured my applications, like the way I applied. And what I mean by that is just dividing the applications between round one, round two, and round three. I focused on just one school in round one and then on too many schools in round two. So, like, it really sort of overwhelmed me in the middle of, like December until the end of January because there was just like so much going on. So I think I would say that definitely pace that out. That's super important.
Great. I think, again, the insights never stop. So you already sound so knowledgeable and intellectual about it that it really never stops. But great. This was, I think, amazing. Got to know really new, different stuff from you, and about Johnson, about your entire journey pre MBA and during your MBA. Just for closing, one advice that I know that you already stated out like many times, but just one sort of one-liner advice that you would want to give to prospective applicants, to just end this on like a positive, nice high note.
Yeah, of course. Firstly, okay, so most of this interview has been like very truthful with respect to how rigorous it is. But people do it, people have done it, I have done it, and it'll happen for you. I would just say, as I said before, be patient. And while do not overestimate yourself, do not underestimate as well. There's a variety of factors that go into you getting that admit or you not getting that admit. Don't try and preempt that. Don't try and, present a personality of you which you think the school would like. Be really honest with yourself and please network. I think there is no harm that can come out of like speaking to the admissions committee, getting to know the school better. If anything, I feel that one differentiating factor for me during my application, why I made it out of that, I mean, there were more than 200 people on the wait list. Why was I the one who got like maybe, I feel like one of the most differentiating factors was that I went out of my way to connect with people. And I was constantly in touch with them, not just following up about my application, but like talking to them about their achievements. For example, Johnson got like a STEM designation for their MBA, and I congratulated the admissions team and the deans for that. So, those things, most people don't do that. Specifically, most people from your country don't do that. So how do you differentiate yourself in a pool of consultants, a 3-year work experience with a 7 GMAT score? That's what I did. So like what I would say is it's sort of really on you to differentiate yourself. And will have great things happen for everybody. They will happen for you as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Arushi, for doing this. Thank you for taking out the time. I'm sure it is super hectic for you. But thank you so much for taking out the time for this. And I am sure that everyone who's going to watch this, they're going to have some really nice, to just, it's one of those stress buster things. They can just watch this for fun and really be like, yeah, she's right. I resonate with that. So,
Well,
thank you
I
for
hope
doing
this
this.
is of some help to people. Really, like, I don't know, I tend to talk about this a lot because this is something I feel very passionately about with respect to admissions and all. But I hope it's of some help to your viewers. And thank you so much for having me here. And before I go, I would say that if anybody has any other questions, wants to connect offline, whatever, wants to have a chat about this entire process, I would love to stay in touch. They can either get in touch with you or people can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always available, and I'll make sure that I can make time up for a chat for sure.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for doing that. And all the best to you for your internship and for your further MBA journey. And even post that, I hope you really achieve all the endeavors that you set out for yourself.
Thank you, Kashish. Thank you so much for doing it. Good luck to you as well.
Thank you. Bye bye.